So do you want to just kind of open with like who you are and I guess what got you started into digital art?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Justin Maller. I'm an Australian digital artist and the Chief Creative Officer at Deviant Art. I've been creating for about 20 years now. I got my first copy of Photoshop back in 1998. I didn't even have an internet connection at the time. That's how old and shit I was. Um, but I saw a buddy of mine burn Photoshop onto a CD and he put like a fancy cover on it, whatever, and I installed it. And, Photoshop has a really high learning curve, right?
Mm,
And let me promise you, it was way higher in 1998 when where A, I didn't have internet, B, there was nothing on the internet about it anyway. No
mm,
magazines, no culture, no nothing. So I made some pretty terrible stuff for a long time. Like I picked up eye candy and made terrible stuff that was on fire now. So that was, an upgrade at least.
mm,
But then I found DeviantArt in 2001. So, DeviantArt launched in August 2000. I discovered it in June 2001. So I was close, but, amongst the true aficionados, I am not OG on DeviantArt. But that was coming up on 20 years ago. So, yeah, I got mad sucked into it. It was my last year of high school and I was meant to be paying attention. I went to a really academically demanding school in Melbourne called Melbourne High School. And yeah, I was really meant to be paying attention because in Australia, like you do, like the year that counts is your senior year, right? I know in America it's your junior year and senior year you get to goof around.
mm.
What's your swearing policy like, by the way?
Hit it
Because
full send.
sweet, okay, cool, good to know. Yeah, so here you guys fuck around in your senior year, which is ideal, like because that's what it should be for. But in
Mm,
Australia, we're meant to be like pedal to the metal, really going for it.
mm,
And instead, I was staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning on DeviantArt and at IRC, making really terrible quality artworks. I loved it. I got internet by that point. I
huh.
became very cool. Uh, and yeah, and that was it for me. Like I really went hard at it. I still, I went to university. I did a Bachelor of Creative Arts, which was mainly focused around writing and theater and stuff like that, not around art or digital art at all.
Mm,
Um, but I started Depthcore, a big art collective that some people will know and some people will become aware of pretty soon, actually.
mm,
In 2002, and we just sort of went hard at digital artwork and especially abstract and 3D digital artwork for the better part of a decade. And for anything to live on the internet for a decade, it's pretty good. Like DeviantArt's incredible at 20 years, but Depthcore made it 10 years, and we made no money, had no money. All it did was cost us money, and we were broke.
huh.
And whilst that was running, started freelancing and what have you. And I freelanced through right the way through till 2018 when I joined DeviantArt as the chief creative. And that's glossing over some stuff. I did some other projects and shit along the way, but
Mm.
that's the main thrust. That's what I've been up to for 20 years or so. How about you?
So, I mean, I'm just doing podcasts. I work civil service for City of New York, and yeah, that's about it. It's I I guess we have three viewers, and this will probably go live after. But I believe if everything goes well, I'll be starting with Nifty Gateway on Monday, and
Oh,
so
very cool.
yeah, that's a little bit of a surprise for you. But yeah, I actually got accepted as a producer role for Monday. So if everything goes well with the background check and everything like that, then I will be working for Nifty Gateway. So
Dude, congratulations. That's amazing. So
yeah,
your DMs are about to explode, is what is
uh,
about to happen.
I might have to do the opposite of most of you guys because I've reached out to a lot of you guys through DMs. I might have to close my DMs.
Oh yeah,
And
you're about to get hit, son. Oh my goodness. And this is great because everyone hits me up like I can do anything, which I can't. If you're
yeah.
watching this, stop asking. I got nothing. But this guy's who you need to DM. And he's promised that they'll stay open. Live on video. Dan
Well,
Savage, the most approachable man for Nifty Gateway. He wants to give you a date. He can.
you are a great salesman. Oh, oh man. So yeah, so we'll say let's hold off. Let's get the confirmation on Monday, and whatever. I have the laptop and the background check is running, and so I have nothing to hide. But let's we'll cross those T's and dot those I's, and yeah, hopefully it all goes well. But
Fantastic news, man. Fingers crossed for you.
thank you. So for you, like, at what point did you decide that you wanted to be like just a digital artist? Like, obviously you went through school for it, and like, at what point did it click? Like, okay, I can make a living. Was there like doubt or issues in between? You were saying that one of the companies wasn't making making money for quite a period of time. So, like, how
Oh,
how does that click?
For sure. I mean, Deathcore was an art collective. It was never designed to make money. Like
Mm,
we ran it as a consultancy afterwards, which did make money.
mm,
But the actual art collective never did. Um, so I don't know. Like I was really passionate about it. It was all I wanted to do. So I'm talking like 2005, 2006. I'm 5, 6 years in. I'm doing it just nonstop every second I have outside of my shitty day job in university and whatever, right? And I'm starting to get a little bit of traction. Like I get a couple of jobs here or there for a few $100, a couple grand. I started writing for computer arts really regularly. So this is back when there were bookstores. You got to love doing a podcast with me. So I throw it back to it feels like the dark ages.
mm.
But yeah, I was in Borders, and I just went around like all the magazines about digital art at the time, got all the editors' email addresses and wrote to them being like, hey, I know Photoshop pretty well. I can write tutorials for you. Do you want me to do it? And they did. Like they were desperate for content and people who could write.
Mm.
And I am literate, believe
Yeah.
it or not. So I was a good fit for it. And yeah, so I started doing that, and I was starting to get enough income that I was like paying the rent, paying the bills, and I was all right. And like, so I quit my shitty day job. And I didn't make a lot of money the first year, not necessarily a lot the second year, but I was getting by just doing what I wanted to do in that space. And it was exciting. And I was young enough that they wanted high stakes.
Mm.
But when I made the decision, like I kept that day job for a long time, like longer than most would have, because I wanted to make sure I had money to live. Like I wasn't trying to be a starving artist. I was okay being broke, but I didn't want to actually starve, right?
Yeah.
But I just said to myself, look, I'm going to try this out for a year. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to see what comes my way when I really give it everything I've got. And then I'll reevaluate if it doesn't work out. And it worked out. Like it wasn't spectacular, but I did some work for some fun clients like DC Shoes and what have you that paid enough money that I was like, yeah, this is the right track.
Mm.
And yeah, and after a period, there weren't questions. It was just a matter of how, like, I was going to be able to survive. The question was like, how well?
Mm. That's awesome. I mean, I've gone through your actual webpage, which is justinmaller.com, and I mean, I want to say it's actually like a stark contrast between what you actually dropped on like Nifty Gateway in terms of like that style of art, and then what actually went through on Nifty Gateway. Do you think that it was just the piece that you put out on Nifty Gateway, or like do you have a preference towards more? I'm gonna butcher even trying to describe it. I'm gonna pull it up so people can see, but it's almost like you're kind of bringing like a lot more shapes into it. I'm just gonna
Geometric, is that what you're
yes,
looking for?
geometric.
There
Yes,
you go.
thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Literate and better than me at speaking.
Well, I've learned how to describe my own art. So,
Yes.
it's like, yeah.
Do you want to describe your
So,
own art?
oh, I'd love to. It's just my favorite thing. So, okay, like, no, I've been doing this shit for 20 years, right? And the
Mhm.
stuff I was doing at the start was like that 3D abstract stuff that you'll find if you dive into the wallpaper section of my site, which is where I throw up a lot of my experiments and what have you I don't want on the front page.
Mhm.
So the gateway stuff, like I said, 20 years, right? So there was a period there where like I did a piece every day for a year. You may have heard of this concept.
Mhm.
I did it in 2013. So 2013 finished in 2014. It was called Facets. It's still online, facets.la. And in the course of making a piece every day for a year, I started off making my usual abstract bullshit. But like one day I tried just this geometric thing on an animal portrait. I was like, damn, that's cool. And I did it again. I realized I had something that I could play with. And so for a few years there, that particular style was very in demand. And I enjoyed making pieces in that style and sort of perfecting it. But it was a real departure. It was much more illustrative than my previous work. That was very 3D, very dimensional.
Mhm.
And this was a way flatter feel and a way more like traditional illustrative feel. And like from a freelance perspective, it was excellent because all of a sudden you had work that was much more applicable to a lot more, situations. So that was cool. But my heart has always been in 3D. Like when I'm working in 3D, I feel like a mad scientist. I'm shit at 3D, by the
Mhm.
way. Like, you look at some of the people out there like Raf Grassetti and people like that who can just sculpt and create amazing, intricate work. Blake Catherine is another one. I can't do that.
Mhm.
I could if I really did it, but the thing is, like, I was actually a Photoshop expert who like dabbled in 3D. But I love 3D. It makes me feel like mad scientist in the lab and whatever. And I knew for the gateway drop, I knew I wanted it to move, and so I thought, I do know how to make work move in 3D. And I'd tried a few experiments over the years, just little random things. And I always really, really enjoyed it. Like, well, I've got a really concentrated period of time here where I can really explore that. And the thing I like about, NFTs as collectibles is the fact that they can move. I have a strong preference as a collector towards moving NFTs.
Mm.
And I thought that, I should try and like, grow and experiment. So yeah, I went in there, and that series is just like that happened pretty organically, to tell you the truth. Like I basically I made the illustration I wanted first. So Flood is the first piece in that series. That's the first piece I made. And basically I made the illustration. I got it to look the way that I want it to look as a still, and then I animated it. Then I brought it to life, and I created variables within the piece.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, so I actually have that piece too. I love that piece. That's like seeing that and the water movement. I'm very into aquatic scenes, like that kind of art, and so that to me like was just very oceanic, and so I hopped in. It's striking to see. I mean, well, it's all. I don't believe you that you're terrible at it because those pieces are really really good. So I mean, I love them. It was a stark contrast to seeing like your other work where I'm like, okay, that's like different. And I really like the cubes personally. Like I like I feel similar to you about the 3D just really getting a lot deeper and stuff like that. And so I love all of like the 3D cubes. And then seeing the other pieces, it's like that's like a totally different artist. That's also awesome, but it feels so stylistically totally changed.
20 years now.
Yeah.
Um, Look, some people stay hard doing the one thing, and I have a lot of respect for that. But
Mm,
I have uh, always had a high output of work, especially when I was doing it full time. And in that high output, you tend to just discover other things and move in other directions to other places.
mm,
So what started off like my Photoshop stuff started off very photo based. After I got over just rendering the same piece, abstract piece, for about 4 years, which was how I started with art. I got into Photoshop, made it very photo based, then back into 3D. And with the constant back and forth, it's just evolution. I mean,
mm.
maybe I should have just stuck with one style and evolved that to perfection in 20 years. But I like that I can sort of hop in and approach things a few different ways.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like I mean, it's two different ways, right? Like you hone it to mastery, or you become jack of all trades, and something that you do over here also is applicable over there. I think I gave this example once, but I started playing ping pong a ton in college, and I learned how to better do layups in basketball because of learning the English, and like
Yeah,
chopping.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call myself a jack of all trades. I can do two things really well. So, and it's been 20 years. So, if I've mastered two things, that's okay in 20 years, I guess.
Mhm.
I've done my 10,000 hours a few times.
Yeah. I mean, it shows. I'm a big fan of the work.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Also, in Flood, there is no water in that piece. You realize that, right?
I do. It just it
Yeah,
on first image it feels like it. I actually pulled it up while we are talking about it. It's just the initial take of looking at it. That's just what it looks like to me. And so yeah, yeah.
that's cool. That's cool.
Sorry for the crappy
No, no worries.
description.
All good. I was just curious. I was just curious if it was really coming across that strongly or not.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's yeah. I've gone through the pieces. I'm like a big fan of the work. Do you have plans for future Nifty drops in like a similar vein, or are they kind of more to your other style, or what are you thinking?
I do have my second Nifty drop planned. Um, it'll be coming up in May. It'll be 3D.
Mm,
It'll be 3D again. It's not going to look very much like the second Storm at
mm,
all. And that's all I'm going to say for now.
that's good.
Uh, this one's going to be interesting. It's a very, very, there's a cool concept behind it.
Mm,
Um, it's going to be more than just an art drop where there's like just some art to buy. There's going to be some fun and games. So yeah, let me get it a little more fleshed out, and then I'll start to share some stuff. But I'm really throwing everything I've got at this one.
awesome. I mean, I guess I'm gonna skip the next question about drop mechanics because I don't want to.
No, look, we can talk about them, but not in relation to the next drop.
Gotcha. What do you think are your like favorite drop mechanics that you've seen to date? Like, what do you think in terms of like the more normal drop mechanics of like, you know, lottery base or open edition? Like, which ones do you like? Which ones do you not?
I think they all have their place. And as a creator, trying to find a balance between the mechanics where you're making things accessible
Mm,
whilst also creating rarity for really serious collectors, it's a really fine balance to walk. And it was especially difficult in my first drop because I love those 8 pieces equally. So the way that I split those mechanics up was on actually advice Darlington, Mike Darlington, and Tim Kang, illustrator, gave me some great advice too.
mm,
Um, so I split mine up via narrative. So I don't know if we want to do a deep dive into my thing, but there were certain events that happened over the course of the narrative of that series that delineated where my opens finished, where the silent auctions began, and where the one of one auctions started. So if I was going to revisit it, I may have introduced a draw. I didn't want to do the limited editions because at the time we didn't have the it wasn't a draw, it was just the fastest and it was getting bought a lot.
mm,
And I got an abiding passion for sneakers over the years, and I've lost so many fucking sneakers to bots. I will never ever reward a bot user if I can help it.
mm,
Um, so I went with the opens and the silence and the one of one auctions. The opens I like because they're accessible.
mm,
The draws I like because they're accessible but can't be botted, which is great. So you can get
mm,
something really valuable in a limited edition as just a standard collector. You don't need to be a whale to be able to get in there and get that.
mm,
And I really like it. At the same time, it really shits me because it means that I can't buy that stuff.
mm.
So, like there's like Stefan Too Much Lag has his drop today, and there's a piece I desperately want, and I'm either going to get it or I'm most likely not because there's only 15 of them,
Mm.
and 1,000 people are going to answer for it. But that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. Silent auctions are good in that I feel like they set the true initial valuation on a piece quite accurately. It's an amalgam. It's like the median of what these 10 people were willing to pay for it. And I like that. There's something fair about that, even though it does slightly favor more, wealthier collectors.
Mm.
So they all have their place, and it's as creators, I know from speaking to many other NFT artists, it's a real. We put a lot of time, a lot of consideration into this to try to balance those mechanics and make sure it's a great experience for the collectors.
Awesome. Yeah, I will say that I don't know if you saw yesterday's drop with the open editions. It cut down from like 16,000 entries to like 4,000 entries, and so there's like raffle bots too. I also love sneakers too, and so I'm like aware of the more, whatever, like the bot scene, and so it seems like there's somebody that's scripting entries into a lot of these. So that's my only takeaway with the whatever draw entries is that once you start getting raffle entries in, then it kind of fucks everything up just the same.
Well, I hope that the platforms are able to come up with a fix for it.
Yeah.
Because you want people to be able to get stuff, and you don't want cheaters to prosper. So
Yeah. What's your favorite shoe?
like favorite model or like specific shoe?
Hit me with both.
I love SBs. I've always loved SBs. They had a real renaissance last year where they sort of went insane, but I've always loved them because they're comfortable. I mean, I got this pair of Forbes reverse wheats that you can see I've beat them to death. Like I wear them all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
But I got some nicer SBs as well. My favorite shoe is probably my Union Jordan High. It's a Jordan 1 High. I got the red and black Union collab with them. It's just a beautiful shoe.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of the off-whites as well, and I have a real special place in my heart. I got a pair of the Prestos from the original 10, which I just thought was one of the most beautiful pairs of shoes I ever saw. Like when I saw that shoe and the way that it had been deconstructed, I know the 10s have gone wherever they've gone, but that shoe was really special, and I love owning that shoe. I rock all my shit as well. I don't put anything on ice. I wear all of it, and I don't, wherever I can, I don't pay resale either. I try to like buy retail.
I mean,
I had to lash out once or twice.
I think your cloud will help you get some shoes in like the long term.
Hasn't so what I have actually. I have a wonderful friend, Mark Fraser Cook, who's helped me out with a couple of pairs, including that pair of Prestos. But Nike don't have the love for me. Nike, if you're watching, love me. Send me shoes. Size 12. Yeah. Drip me up, baby. Come on, help me out.
Yeah, I got blessed this year with the off-white fours in a size 10 and a half, but it's a women's shoe, so I didn't get to keep
bummer,
that.
dude.
and
I love that too. That sale one, right? That's a beautiful shoe.
yeah, and then I got blessed with the off white fives, and that's a 10.5, but that's men's. So I have the off white fives, and I'm very that's my
The
like
muslin, the muslin ones.
the also the sale ones.
Oh, the sale ones,
Yeah, yeah,
nice.
yeah.
I have the muslin ones, the
Mm,
darker fives. They're nice.
yeah. Like they,
Yeah.
I love. I'm excited because there's no doubt in my mind that Virgil hops into the space, right? Like they're like he's
Oh,
too cutting edge. Like
100%,
yeah,
100%. He's scheming.
yeah.
I hope that he brings something of true value to it though. That's my hope. I hope that everyone who enters this space brings something really real to it in terms of creativity or artistry or emotion,
Mm,
because it's easy to perceive it as just a quick way to make money, and I think that that's going to ultimately devalue the whole space and make this into the trivial thing that its critics say that it is.
mm,
So I just, there's space for everyone here. I truly believe that, but I just hope that people bring real creativity and thought to it.
mm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, is there? Do you think do you think that the platforms play a role in that, where like the platforms have to be picky and I mean, obviously, that not everybody can drop on every platform, right? In terms of the limited platforms, but even in terms of what gets in, like if say XYZ, celebrity, 100 million followers comes in and they go, I want to do an NFT drop, and it's some half-ass piece. Do you think that like it's a platform's responsibility to say no to that person, or in this phase is all news good news, is all growth good growth, right? Is all hype good hype?
I don't know. I can't make a sweeping statement like that. I think that these platforms are becoming brands in their own right, and they need to align on what their mission is and what they're trying to do.
Mm,
And they also need to be cognizant of their place in the meta of all of these platforms. Like different platforms are serving different purposes, and there's certainly some platforms who are very open, which I view as a really good thing.
mm,
And it's their stance that people should be able to come in, make what they want to make, mint what they want to mint, and go for it from there, whether they have 10 million followers or 10 followers.
mm,
And I got respect for that. And then there's some that are curated, and they need to decide what their mission is. Um, so I can't make that statement. It depends on the brand that these platforms are trying to build themselves as.
mm,
I personally think that there's tremendous value in curation, both curation of creator and curation of the content created. And I don't mean that in terms of artists should be told what to make, but if you're having something that's primarily a visual medium created, you know, make sure the visuals are good.
mm,
Like there's a great realm of collaboration available here with a lot of talented visual artists trying to break into the space.
mm.
Why put something half-assed up when you can break someone into it? There's just there's opportunity. There's no reason to do things at half-mast.
Yeah, yeah, full send kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you? I guess I like to kind of do this, and then I like to try and add them into it. Like, do you have like say two or three different artists that are like up and coming that you're super excited to work with, or just like, super excited anytime you see like them post artwork on Twitter, kind of thing, just as shout out kind of thing.
Oh, so many. So the thing is that the up and coming artists I'm looking at are super established creative people
Mm,
who are new in the NFT scene. So they're minting their first things, and I'm bidding on them now, and I'm trying to get them. But these people are legends. Like
yeah,
they were in depth core, they've kept going. Like they've this life of being a digital artist, of being an artist in a digital age, and creating all day, every day is the only thing that you do to subsist on. That's a life, and you either walked it or you didn't.
mm,
And some of these guys are, I guess you call them up and comers because you wouldn't have heard of them. No, no, no shade.
mm,
I'm just saying there's a lot of people in this in the NFT space, in the crypto art space, who haven't heard of some of these legends of digital art. So I mean, I got a bid in right now on one of David Mash's pieces.
mm.
I'm not going to link to it, so I want to win it. No, I'll link to it. I'll link to it. You should totally buy it. You should totally outbid me. I've got a bid in on Diego L. Rodriguez's Genesis piece as well, which, gosh, I hope I win. Karan Singh, made by Karan, is entering the space. There's too many. It's not fair. Like there's just so many amazing artists that I'm seeing putting out their first pieces. My favorite photographer, Chris Knight, just minted his first piece on Foundation. You can buy his Genesis piece for like 1.5 ETH. It's crazy. But these people are really established creative people. They've been in this,
Mm,
but they're new to this scene. And I think that I think the NFT scene is going to sustain, is going to be here for a long time. I expect some market volatility and what have you, but I think that this is the new way that the world is going to collect things. And I think that there's a lot of these amazing artists who are putting their pieces out there that you can grab right now before they get that heat, and you're going to be real, real happy.
Mm. So you have almost like the inside track from like a sports betting standpoint on those artists that should be way more hyped than they are.
Yeah, definitely.
But
But the question is whether the crypto art market, like, no, you know something, the crypto art market will become more sophisticated as time goes on, and I think that I think and hope that this heritage will be of more and more importance over time. I think that people will care that someone has been creating for 15 years, and you can see the evolution of their work.
mm,
And so, in that sense, I think that these amazing artists who are just now starting, who don't have the heat on their names yet, yeah, I think they're going to be good buys, and I think that they're going to do really well.
so also not a hot take, but from that, you think that like the quality of content that's going to come into the space is just going to go astronomically up, where you have people 15, 20 years in the industry kind of thing shifting over, right? Almost like Chad Knight, right? Like Chad Knight, him dropping on Nifty Gateway is huge, and it didn't quite have like the same impact that I was quite expecting. Like that guy, he worked for Nike. Like it's insane. So like, is that accurate? You think?
I think that it's going to go both ways. I
Mm,
think that, as the adoption of NFT is going to become more and more mainstream. So you're going to see a huge influx of great stuff and a huge influx of not so great stuff.
mm,
Um, what I think is that the work at the top end of the spectrum is going to get better and better.
mm,
I think that the work that is really highly valued is going to diversify. Right now, there's a really strong aesthetic at the top of it, which is cool because for a change, it's mine. Like that never happens. But like photographers aren't being represented in collections yet. That that's coming. That has
mm,
to come. There's so many amazing, talented photographers and traditional artists and people who work in all sorts of mediums where it's starting to crack. You're starting to see it already, but it's going to happen over time. Of course, it
mm,
is. And collectors are going to become more sophisticated as they like get a better understanding of the medium that they're collecting. It just takes some time.
mm.
So I think that NFTs broadly are going to broaden. That wasn't good. Double broad. Anyway, what's available is going to get broader. The people collecting it is, the audience is going to get broader. The financial disparity between people is going to get broader.
Mhm.
People who are able to enter at these high price points, there's going to be more of them, but there's also going to be stuff at lesser price points. And that's where you're going to start to see, I believe, a normalization in the market.
Mhm.
But it's important to remember, I spent 20 years making digital art, not studying economics, so I don't know anything.
I respect the self gut check.
It's just what I think. Like, there's
Yeah.
just so many amazing artists every day minting their first pieces. You have to figure that, like,
Mm.
there's, it's going to go both ways.
Yeah.
Because there's people who are just getting started who are minting stuff that is, very early work.
Mm.
So, it's a good thing. More adoption is good.
Yeah. So I've asked this question before, and I feel like with the space blowing up, right? Like you as a kid, I'm assuming probably were not told, "Hey, go be an artist. It's a great job. Like great job. You can be rich. You can be famous. You can make a ton of money, or you can even carve out a living." I'm assuming we grew up in similar time frames. I'm a little bit younger than you, but I'm assuming nobody was sitting there telling you this is like the good safe path. And so with this change, like with this advent of art, do you think that you're going to get more kids who from an early age with showing a little bit of talent and just interest become take art to like that next level, or do you think that like the artists that are current are like kind of that peak, or what do you think there in terms of like a more native child to art?
It's a good question. Look, we are in a really, really nascent period right now with this stuff. It's, if the kind of sales that we're seeing sustain, then of course more and more people are going to be drawn towards digital art as a career. Of course they are.
Mm,
But even if it normalizes out a little bit more, I still think you're going to see more, and you are going to, and we're always going to see more and more people drawn to the arts because content has been, of all kinds, has been put on a pedestal and has been given greater value since the advent of social media platforms and YouTube.
mm,
And the way that you succeed on those platforms is by being creative and using software, which is what digital art is.
mm,
So you are always going to see more and more kids doing it because the career path has never been clearer or more diverse in terms of the different directions you can go. Like when I made the decision, it was a ridiculous decision. Okay, it was straight up nuts. There were no digital artists making a living with a career path like carved out for them where you could know what to do. And that's especially true when you look at the work that I was making when I made that decision. Because there were plenty of artists who were making a living, don't get me wrong, and many of them may have been using digital tools, but they weren't making the shit I was making because there was not a career path for that kind of junk, I promise. But it's mad different now. And it's especially different now that you're seeing all of these different beautiful kinds of work being auctioned and sold and valued so highly that people can really express themselves and explore their own imagination and aesthetics as far as they want to go with it. The question is, like, as this market evolves, what does this look like in a year? I don't know. So, if it's like this, if it stays exactly where it is now forever, and let's hope it does. If it stays like this, then yeah, of course, there's going to be a massive boom of it. Because why wouldn't there be? In the same way that there's always been a lot of people wanting to be entertainers and athletes and actors and what have you. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But what I would say is there was already going to be a huge influx of creative people using digital software because of just the nature of human consumption and entertainment consumption and the way that shifted from even 10 years ago or 15 years ago where it was mainly TV to now where it's all this.
Yeah. I'm curious because you're obviously like a quick thinker and you're obviously, native to the space far more than I am. I'm curious, like, how much of these situations have you thought about beforehand that I'm like asking you questions about? Because you're real quick with it, and I don't know if you've kind of like, do you meta think about like what's going on in your life, where it's going? Like are you like a meditator? Like how are your answers so fluid so quickly? Like again, like have you pre-thought a lot of these situations out, or like is it just you're so native to the space? You think?
You ever see Taken? I have a very specific set of skills, right? Yeah. Like outside of this, I'm totally useless. Like the sink's broken in the bathroom right now. I'm clueless. I got no idea. I need my landlord to come fix it up. No, I mean, I do think about this stuff a lot. And there's decisions to be made in life presently for artists like myself where there's reconfigurations of our careers and our focuses that need to come into place, and I need to, for the kind of person I am, really consider all of these things before I make decisions. So, when we're talking about the shape of the marketplace and the way that can go, yeah, I've thought about that before. But when you ask me a question about whether there'll be more kids or not, I mean, no, I just thought about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we mentioned your hobby with shoes, and then you have guitar sitting in the background, and you kind of, glance at it. Do you? I guess you're also into music, and like, what other hobbies do you think like help with art, or kind of like have overlap? You think?
Whatever you want. I mean, I've when I was younger, I used to really hate the question, "What's your inspiration?" I was like, I don't need no inspiration. What are you talking about? I just sit down and make shit, and I really do believe that. I think that the most important thing to do is to sit down and make shit. If you give yourself time to explore your imagination and time to master the software that you want to use to do that exploration, you're going to go fine. But now that I'm older and less of a prick, what I realized people were actually asking me is what fuels my imagination, like what makes me happy.
Yeah.
And it was how I was answering the question. I was just being a dick about, hey, inspiration, it's bullshit. What they were asking is just, what gets your imagination going? So I love music. I've always loved it. And reading as well. I read for an hour or so before bed every night. And those two things sort of seem to keep my imagination flowing and happy and bubbling up so that when I sit down, there's just something, that just pops into the brain to start making or what have you. So I think it's different for everyone. Like some people like hiking, some people like horse riding, some people like volleyball. I don't know. Whatever it is that makes you feel good and makes your brain happy so that when you sit down and look at that blank canvas, something's going to pop in your mind. That's a good hobby. Yeah.
What's like I'm actually used to be a lot more of a big reader, but what's favorite books, author?
I've been reading a lot of fantasy for the last 2 or 3 years. I just needed it for some reason. If you ask me my favorite author, I'd probably say it's Murakami. I just love his meditations and the way they're grounded in like the granular detail of day-to-day life, but with these incredible, fantastic elements that just take you into these strange places.
Mm.
So I'd probably say Murakami. But I read everything. I was in a book club with some of my best friends in New York, and we read a lot of really great stuff. I love Cormac McCarthy. Gosh, who else? My memory these days. It's fading down. It's
Same.
fading in my old age, brother. But yeah, lately just been on a real fantasy tear. I'm reading Mr. Norrell and Jonathan Strange right now, which some of your listeners will know.
Mm.
It's not bad.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see. I don't know if you know, like Kings of Leon is dropping a like an album
Yeah, I
tomorrow
saw
as an
that.
NFT. Do you think that this is like the natural progression where more of the creatives as a whole, right, like music and everything else, start doing it as like an NFT where you get the NFT, you get the digital, CD or whatever the piece is, and then you also get, a physical piece in the mail kind of thing. Do you think that this is just going to be like a native, natural progression?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be different applications for a lot of stuff as we move forward, and people are going to start to, bundle more and more stuff into these tokens. Like it actually kind of makes sense. Like if my favorite band put out like an $80 NFT that I could buy, or whatever the price, okay,
Mm.
like, it could be $1,000, I don't know, whatever it is they want to charge. But I got like, a beautiful piece for my collection. And I also maybe got a concert ticket, and that concert ticket was embedded in the token, so it couldn't be counterfeited or anything like that,
Mm.
right? And then maybe there's a physical element, like it comes with a T-shirt and a meet and greet or some crap like that. That's
Mm.
awesome. That's so cool. I think that the more stuff and the more value that we can package it in is great if that's the concept. I think that there's it's fine if it's just a standalone piece of artwork,
Mm.
if it's just the digital file associated with it. But I think it's really cool that people are already starting to explore what else you can do with these tokens and what the other value propositions are.
Yeah.
But
I
that also comes back to what we were saying before about the marketplace. Sorry to cut you off.
you could,
But I think that a really great example of normalizing the marketplace is going to be when these bands start to charge, say, $50 for a token, and it comes with the album and a thing and whatever, and that becomes just the normal way to buy an album
Mhm.
now. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really fascinating. It's also going to bring a lot of people into the NFT market where you have a more approachable and like understandable way to like get that value proposition across.
Mm. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about it. My brother's a huge Kings of Leon fan, so it's yeah. I'll be trying to. Well, I think it's open for like 2 weeks, so yeah. I'll try and put that link down in the description because this will probably be in the middle of that, and so whatever people decide they want to buy it. Do you work and collab with like a lot of other people, or do you want to moving into like the future?
I'd love to, yeah. Depth Core was a very collaborative experience. I made literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of collaborations. And I would love to keep doing that moving forward. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for the space for artists to be able to work with each other and be paid for their time. It's just an incredible thing. So yeah, 100%. There's, you're already seeing some really great stuff in collaborations between visual artists and musicians as well, which I think has always been a space where there was a bit of inequity, where an artist would be paid a few grand for an album cover that was the visual identity for something that would go on to generate whatever it did. But it's part of the icon, it's part of the identity, and the collaboration didn't have that equitable nature
Mm-hmm.
that NFTs are promising. So I'm really stoked for that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, photographers too, right? I mean, the first album cover that comes to mind is like the Blink-182 album that I like, grew up with that I can't think of the name of right now, with the nurse that has all the tattoos on it and stuff. Like
That's the first album cover that comes to your
that's
mind?
that's that's probably the second CD that I ever got as a kid.
Fair enough. I mean, we
Yeah,
all remember the first CD we bought.
I think the first one is Dookie by Green Day. My dad's was a huge Green Day fan at the time, and so then yeah, I think that was first, and then the Blink-182 one was second, and my mom was like, what is this? And like she was like snapping out and didn't want to buy it. And so yeah, needless to say, listened to a lot of it. A lot of punk rock growing up as a kid.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess like where do you like? I guess the twofold question is: were you aware of this blow up happening, and like what was it like to experience it throughout, right? And then obviously have your own drop, and then we kind of touched on it a little bit, but like, do you We already kind of touched on it. I was going to say, where do you really think it's going? But, in terms of the economics and stuff. But
We kind of covered that, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I guess more of like, how was it being through the explosion within like the space?
So, like, do you mean what's happened in the last few weeks, like
Yes.
including my drop, or prior to that?
All of that. Like, I mean, it's kind of gone nuclear like the past, say, 3, 4 weeks, but even
Sure.
January. Yeah.
Um, January, I was a little checked out, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't paying close attention. I saw Mike's big day in November, and I was like, wow, that's incredible for the future of digital art. Like that's really something. Um, but yeah, I was pretty checked out in January, just in Australia dealing with some personal stuff. Um, so yeah, I was pretty unprepared, and then I saw the weekend before my drop the same day with Blake, Catherine, and Mad Dog, and I saw that there'd been a lot of activity, and I got a couple of messages from some friends being like, "I think shit's going to go wild this week,"
Mm-hmm.
but I certainly wasn't expecting what happened on my drop day at all.
Mm-hmm.
My drop rolled around, and at 4 o'clock, I bought a Mad Dog Open Edition, and I entered the draw on all of Blake's pieces. So I did all of that. I had it all loaded up. I did all of that in about 5 seconds, and then I just like walked away. Jenny and I went upstairs and had some tequila and talked about mum and talked about the artwork a little bit and just looked, gazed up at the sky or whatever. And then, yeah, I was like, all right, should we go back in? It had been like 10 minutes. I left my phone downstairs. I took my Apple Watch off or whatever. I didn't want to be bothered. I just wanted to have a minute. I refreshed the screen and I went into shock, like actual shock. Like all I did, I sat there and shook and drank tequila for a couple of hours. Some friends came over, my next door neighbors came over, and Tim Kang, illustrator, and Brandon Kang. Um, and Matt Stefanino came over. We were all very socially distanced. We have a yard, and the chairs are all 15 feet away from each other and what have you. And they all spoke while I sat there and shook. So that was my drop experience, and it was not at all expected or planned for, and it's incredible. It's you say life changing, and you don't realize quite how many facets of life it's going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I yeah, it's an amazing. Like I'm just happy that this is the beginning for artists, right? Like from all honesty, right? Like what maybe there's say 10, 20 artists total that have really made money throughout their lives while living, right? And so this is that opportunity for you guys to be justly compensated, right? Like you said, with like the album covers and everything else.
Well, there might be a few more artists than that who got their bag, but this is certainly the first time where it's become where it's reached our sphere for sure, where you had artists who were quite blue collar in a way, who rocked up and charged
Mm-hmm.
day rates or hourly rates or what have you, or just whatever was offered in the budget,
Mm-hmm.
being treated like fine artists. And I know what it means to all of us
Mm-hmm.
to have this happen, and it's very special.
Do you think you will continue in a client facing take of any sort moving forward, or do you think you're just going to focus on yourself?
I don't know. I certainly think that there's still room for collaborations and client work for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see how the nature of it evolves over time.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my responsibilities at DeviantArt as well, of course. But I am just really excited to be able to do personal work and collaborations with people and other creators from various mediums, where we're able to really, get in there, see what feels good, see what's working for us, and be able to put that out and have that time be rewarded. Because that was the thing, man. I've made literally thousands and thousands of pieces that I never made a dime from.
Mm-hmm.
It was my pleasure to do it. I really enjoyed doing it. Like it was for my own benefit. But it's cool to be able to get paid for it. Yeah. That is cool, and it's cool that other people can collect it and get value and derive benefit from it as well, beyond just setting it as a wallpaper on their computer or something. So that's very cool, and it's certainly going. I think you're going to see a real explosion of creativity and innovation in the digital spaces, that all of these digital artists are set free to be able to really just dig. It's going to be very cool.
Yeah. I I don't know if I'm popping a bubble here, but is it likely that DeviantArt is going to move into the space?
certainly looking into it very
Yeah.
vigorously now. Yeah,
Mm.
for sure. I mean, like, I don't think you can operate in the digital plane right now and be unaware of this and not thinking about how it affects your business, your community, the artists, you know. So, you know, DeviantArt has certainly got its eyes open, and we're exploring the opportunity to try and work out a responsible and considered approach to it that we can roll out as quickly as possible.
Awesome. Awesome. Good to hear. um, I guess like one of the last questions that I have for you is, do you find that, I know you talk about doing art for the sake of doing art, right? Like to like put yourself through it in terms of like just getting it done. But do you think that there's more for your own sake in terms of like venting? Like do you find when you're like angry that it helps to do art, right? Or like if you're just complacent, does it help to do art, right? Like is it meditative in practice?
I never thought about it, to tell you the truth, mate, because for so much of my life, it's just what I did every day. So I'd be in whatever mood I was in, but that's what I was doing that day.
Mhm.
I know with the series I put out on Nifty Gateway, that work was very, very personal in a way that work very little I've made in my career has been. And I know that it really helped me during a difficult time, and it helped me to process and to be able to focus my energy and my mind on putting what was happening in my life into the work. Um, so I think that that was therapeutic, if nothing else. Um, but for everything else I've made, it's just what I did as part of my day-to-day life. Like that's just what I do when I wake up. Like some people wake up and they add up numbers because they're an accountant, and some people get on phone calls because they're an executive. And for me, for so much of my life, I just made art: happy, angry, sad, gassy, whatever art. So I never really noticed the difference. But that series, especially after quite a long layoff, you know, my output really dropped whilst I've been working for DeviantArt. It was quite profound to be creating that. And I still haven't processed it at all, to tell you the truth, man. It's only been 2 months.
Mhm.
You know, mum died 6 weeks ago today. So I haven't in any way processed all of this or worked out what all of this means.
Mhm. Sorry, man.
Yeah, sorry, that's a bummer way to end the podcast, huh?
No.
Tune in next week.
No, it's cool. It's you know, it's good to see. I think it's good to see like this side of artists. Like this is, you know, like the backstage, right? For I guess for like the podcast, do you think that there was, if you were in my shoes, what questions would you have wanted to be asked?
No, you did great, man. Those are all excellent questions. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really. I mean, seriously, you did really well. That's the sort of stuff that's interesting in the space right now. Are the sort of topics that we covered there. So you did great. Um, no, good job, man. I think you killed
Well, now we get to the fun question, which people like the response from. But I guess, what do you think your purpose is in life?
it. I don't know, Dan. I don't know. Maybe it's this. Maybe it always was this. I know that after such a long layoff, coming back and creating and sharing meant a lot to me. But I also know that I think what my bigger purpose, I've always enjoyed being an artist, but I've also always found it to be really true to my nature and something I get a great deal of personal satisfaction from helping other artists find their footing, find their platforms, you know, and it would be able to explore their creativity. So I think if I had one purpose from a professional perspective, oh, from whatever perspective, it's probably helping artists, other artists get their shine and get the credit that they deserve for their work. That's something I've always been passionate about. And I think it's reflected in when I spent my time doing outside of my own stuff. So, but I don't know. Maybe there's something beyond that. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe it's to do NFTs for this year and then take all those guitars and my boys from New York and go out to the desert and make average rock music the rest of my life.
That'd be pretty awesome.
It might be that. I'm
Mm.
the drummer too. I just have guitars because I like them.
Mm. Oh, really?
Well, also playing drums alone is sad, man. I don't know if you've ever drummed alone, but
No.
it's not good.
Little
Like when
drummer man.
when you're drumming with your band, you know,
Mm.
you're making this huge wall of sound and it's groove and it's fun. And when you're sitting here alone, it's just noise. So you know, with the guitars, I can have a little bit of fun, and I'm no good, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, I grew up with my brother playing guitar endlessly, and I have no very little creative pursuit as far as music and art goes, but I can hum "Smoke on the Water" incessantly because of just him playing it over and over and over, and then Blink-182 songs, Red Hot Chili Peppers, the whole nine. Um,
Nice.
yeah, but thank you for the time, man. I appreciate the insight and the just everything, the time really. I'd love to run it back in like 6 months to a year when after the next drop, and probably you'll probably be 3 drops in at that point. So I'd like to check in and see on what your thoughts are on the space and the development, and continue to
It'll be
see.
great. It'd be great to do that, man. I wish I could talk to myself in 6 months. I have some questions.
We'll run it back. All
Yeah, all right. That'd be cool. All right, let's do that.
right, thanks, man. I really
All right.
appreciate the time.
Cheers, Dan. Thank you, brother.